Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and SMART, bringing people together.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes. Start your morning right. I am William Neal. Marlene will be here in a few. But it's a beautiful Tuesday morning, of course, as promised with the weather. It continues to just have a little bit of damper and it's cool enough so that it's comfortable. And we'll definitely be checking in with the Met Service to see exactly what our weather will be like for today. And we have Mr. Gordon on the line. Good morning, Mr. Gordon.
Hi, good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
The weather continues to be moist and comfortable, though. Is that a trend that will continue today as well?
Yes, we do have an increase in moisture.
Okay.
And for today, it will produce cloudy skies at times, with a few showers over most areas. And then tonight, mainly along coastal areas.
And the winds have been rather brisk as well.
Yes, winds are going to continue out of the east at about 10 to 20 knots, and sea state choppy to moderate.
And our temperatures for today?
For today, we're expecting highs of 84 along the coast, 87 inland, and 74 up in the hills. And lows tonight, 74 along coastal areas, 68 inland, and 63 near the mountain pine ridge.
And as the week continues, what is our extended outlook?
Okay, I have some good news. For tomorrow, we're going to have a slight decrease in moisture, and
Okay.
we're expecting partly cloudy skies with generally isolated showers. And then on Thursday, there's going to be another increase in showers as a cold front approaches and crosses the country late on Thursday.
Okay, but it won't linger, the cold front.
No, the cold front is not going to linger. By Friday, it's going to be cloudy and cool on Friday, and by Saturday, it should be fair, dry, and cool.
All right. Well, that is good news indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon.
You're welcome.
Have a great day today.
Same to you.
Your favorite, a cold front.
I was hoping that it would
and
linger.
your forecasters knew that as well. They're preparing you for the good news that was to come.
Yeah, I wish it would linger. That's the only thing. But obviously, the temperatures have been very cool and comfortable, so great to sleep in. So I'm not complaining
And
at
I
all.
really, really love windy days. I think, I'm starting to realize more and more that might be one of my favorite. Well, March is my favorite time of year. It's because of the wind.
And we get to launch kites and stuff like that. So.
Oh, leave me alone with my launching, okay? But yeah, and we definitely have had an increase in winds in the past couple of days, and it makes things more comfortable. It just makes the day look prettier when you see the trees swaying about and you hear the wind coming through your windows. It's just nice.
The only thing is that you have to work indoors. I wish there was a way that you could just, even with laptops, go outside and just sit
Isn't
there
that what
and
that's
do
for?
Yeah, it is, but it's
All
quite
these
distracting.
mobile technology.
I know, but we're stuck in offices, unfortunately.
Okay.
So
you'll be the radical to change that.
I think I should establish not in Belmont, and it rains too often.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and move into our eye opener for this morning.
And our eye opener for today, the 15th of January 2013, is as follows. We must realize that our future lies chiefly in our own hands. If you can blame anyone for any condition in your life, then you, not they, are digging your grave. Your chief adversary comes to teach you a lesson. Your most difficult challenge strengthens your survival skills. Your greatest fear deepens your faith. Your weakest ability beckons you to grow. Anyone and anything can challenge you. It will not overtake you until you surrender. Only you can determine what you do and how you respond in a situation. It is your responsibility to make a decision about what is important to you. Choose what you want and how you are going to get it. Once you accomplish that, it is your responsibility to move forward until you get it. I am taking a stand for me.
Power to who? You.
Me. You know, that one, again, continuing in the vein from yesterday, it's all about being honest with yourself and realizing that you could be your greatest enemy or your greatest asset. And it doesn't matter what people say, what society says, to heck with all of it. It's really left up to you. And when you chart a course for yourself, despite of what others might tell you, life can be great because you'll overcome all your fears, everything that holds you back. And I like the fact that it talks about only when you surrender are you defeated, not by challenge.
Yeah. You know, I like that it reinforces one of the things that has been mentioned in the book quite often. Looking at your challenges as time to learn a lesson and essentially not fighting it. You know, and I think that anytime you end up in a situation, you try to figure out, why is this happening? You know, why is this happening to me? Why did things turn out the way they did? And it's very important at that time for us to just be able to think of it as a very important lesson, because we won't always be able to figure out the answers. You know, I can't understand why people change, you know, and that's probably one of the hardest ones to accept. I can't understand why circumstances, no matter why, even though I put everything in place, didn't work out how I first intended it to. And because we get stuck trying to figure out these things and perhaps even trying to fix it at that time, we don't end up enjoying the quality of life that we can, or being able to take from that moment what it was put there for. You know, I'm a firm believer that everything in our life comes with a purpose. Even the quote-unquote bad experiences or bad people, you know, they're there to reinforce another part of you. And once they've served their purpose, well, carry on. And
I like the fact that it talks about people coming into your life to challenge you. And I like what you said just now, because it simply points to, you know, we get so anxious. We try and rally other people to support us, and it's always us against them. But that's what life is about, you know. And if you look at challenges as opportunities to grow, then you are going to reach the pinnacle of your existence. If you just, you know that when someone comes and they question you, it's not because they don't like you or because it's a personal attack. Well, it might be as well, but that isn't important. You have to look at what they're bringing, and if it's something that you can grow or use or solidify what you already believe, it's a test of your faith. How many times, you know, you walk around and you say something, but you're half-hearted about it. There's no passion, there's no oomph behind it. You know, you're saying it and you're not sure if you even believe it. And when someone questions it, suddenly you feel as if though it's, you know, they're against you. No, it's just that you have to make sure that whatever you're professing to be your truth is your truth. And when others come, you have to then make sure that you're willing to defend.
That's your test, if you really did believe it.
Yep.
All right. Great eye-opener for this morning.
Yep, and we're getting ready to move into our show for today. And in our first segment, we're going to be joined by a husband and wife team of writers who will be looking at Belize, Central America, the past, the present, the future. And we're going to have they're here for a talk, or a series of talks, and we get an opportunity to sit down and talk with them once again.
All right. And the second part of our show is going to be with representatives of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are going to be looking at the business outlook for 2013. We're going to go ahead and take our first break, and when we come back, we'll get right into it, so stay tuned.
Smart is starting the year off right. On Wednesday, January 16th, get triple up and double up on credit uploads. That's right. Triple up with uploads from $50 and up. And get double up with uploads from $1 to $49. Recharge using prepaid cards, Gimme Dollar Agents, Go Mobile, the Smart Lounge, or Easy Talk. So on Wednesday, January 16th, triple up and double up and start the year off with Smart.
Smart, bringing people together.
Hi, my name is Isani. Many of you guys may know me as a television news reporter here at Channel 5. If there is anything you consider to be newsworthy taking place in your neck of the woods, feel free to give us a call and I'll get on it as quickly as possible.
In the past 8 years, Crime Stoppers of Belize has brought you seizures of illegal weapons and ammunition, has taken a fugitive sex offender and murderer off the street, has recovered a stolen yacht and SUV, taken drugs off the street, recovered stolen property, seized contraband goods, and more. But there are still cases to solve and crimes to prevent. Call 0800-922-TIPS and let's stop crime. Crime Stoppers Belize. Call today and make Belize a safer place for everyone. All calls are confidential and anonymous. Rewards are available if your tips lead to arrests and charge or the recovery of stolen goods.
Air pollution may trigger or worsen chronic lung diseases like asthma. Asthma affects families through time lost from work and school, and care is costly. Get the message. Don't burn refuse and quit smoking for yourself and others. Support legislation in your country to reduce air pollution.
What do you want from your bank?
I want to know that my bank will teach me how to save.
I want to know that my bank can help to make my dream of owning a home a reality.
I want to know that my bank will help me grow my business and build Belize.
I want to know that my bank will keep my investment safe.
Whether you want to start a savings plan, build your own home, invest in your business or plan for retirement, the Belize Bank is here for you. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome back. It's now 16 minutes away from 7 o'clock, and as promised before the break, we're sitting down to talk with a husband and wife team. We have Professor Victor Bulmer-Thomas and Barbara Bulmer-Thomas, writers. Good morning and welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk a little bit about why you're here this time around.
Well, there are perhaps two main reasons. One is that our book, The Economic History of Belize, came out last year. And this is our first chance to develop some of the ideas in that book since the publication. And secondly, both of us are talking, Barbara tonight, me tomorrow, on topics of special interest to us that go a little bit beyond what was in the book and which we think may be of interest to a Belizean audience.
Now, when you decided, let's go back a little bit to when you first decided to co-author a book. What was that like? Just a happy marriage?
Well, not exactly, no. It was a challenge, and actually I thought it was something that would never happen because we work in totally different fields. You know, I have a scientific background and my husband is an economist. However, we've been married for since 1970. You do the maths.
I love Thomas's smile. He's secretly saying, don't try to guess it, honey.
You're right.
And one of the things that we have always argued fiercely about has been Belize, which we both love very much. And I suppose over the years we've tempered each other's views, and we've arrived at a sort of consensus. We don't always agree by any manner of means, but at least we agree on a sufficiently broad number of issues, each bringing insights from more special skills to inform what we hope will be a rounded view for Belizeans.
Now, when you're starting to put together a book and you decide exactly what you'll include, and especially since you've had divergent views, how did you actually come to that point where you said perhaps this would serve people best if we included this section, or if we left that part in,
You know, when I started out as an academic, I tried writing with some other people, other colleagues. It was always a disaster. And so I was quite nervous about writing a book with my wife. But I think the reason why it went so well is because, as she says, we've been developing these ideas since we first met 45 years ago. And really, by the time we decided to write it, we had our ideas pretty settled, and we knew the material that we wanted to put in.
We fought over the bits that were causing us difficulty, and we had gone back individually to do more research where it was needed. So by the time we came together, it was all done and dusted, really. And we were able to fight about it in a pretty intense way that perhaps you would not with a work colleague.
Yeah. Now, I remember a conversation about the book, and I think that one of the things that obviously was most fascinating is that we usually talk about the current economy of the country or the general history of Belize. The book is a combination of both, the economic history of Belize. There were several things that we had discussed. We had a lengthy conversation about the name and where the name was established. And from those conversations and the presentations you made at that time, what has been the response? Now that people have had a time to actually read the book and perhaps be able to understand a bit of what you have put together.
Well, we were finding out about the response, but I do know that the chapter you mentioned on Peter Wallace did cause quite a bit of interest.
It did.
I know somebody accused me of taking away all myth, but actually, you know, I didn't take away all myth. Lots of countries need myth. It is quite possible to have a myth about Peter Wallace, but we must never lose sight of the reality. We must know that this is a figure from our mythology. So all I've done is to say, look, you know, this is not a real person. But sure, you can have pantomimes about him, you could have stories about him, you could even have an adventure trail about him. So it's not actually taking it away, as long as you realize it's not really based in fact, or it can't be substantiated.
Well, when I think for Belize, the challenge comes from the fact that so much of our history seems to be in limbo, that we're revisiting, and in the process of also rewriting and recapturing, that there's so much that there are earthquakes shaking what we consider to be the pillars of our history. How do you address that for people to talk about? Because you said just now in your response about having myths and the purpose that it serves. But do people want the truth, or do they like the stories, the Pocahontas and, you know, that kind of stuff?
I think people everywhere like the stories. But then they also need people like me who will say, will say, I'm very sorry, but you know, this is all we can safely say we know. And if it's written down, you can go back to it when you need it. But yes, we all need myths.
Now, obviously, I think that the conversation specifically about Peter Wallace has been what people remember the most from the book. But I find it interesting that I remember you were talking, Thomas, about Victor, about the cycle of the economy itself. And Belize finds itself in a very precarious time. The part of the speeches that you'll be doing at this time is also not only looking at the past, but taking a toll of what's happening today. When you look at all the research that you had put into this book itself, what does it say about where we are now?
I think what it demonstrates is that Belize is part of three regions: the Caribbean, Central America, and Mexico, if we can think of Mexico as a region. And at various points in its history, it's been quite well integrated into one of these three regions, but has never managed to be integrated into all three at the same time. And that's still the problem today. It's very marginal in terms of its relations with both Central America and Mexico, and also, sadly, with the Caribbean. In that sense, this is one of the worst of times in Belize. One of the charts that I shall show tomorrow shows that there was a point in the 19th century where 60% of Belize's trade was with Central America. And today, it's about 1%. So it can happen. The question is, how do you make it happen? Because if you can change the arrangements, both institutionally and legally, you send a very powerful signal to the private sector about new opportunities. And you hope that out of that you will get new investments, new job creation, and new growth.
I love that you mentioned that, because so often we talk about Belize wanting to integrate with Central America and the efforts that have been and continue to be made there. And also how much we identify with our Caribbean partners, with our Caribbean brothers and sisters. It sometimes feels a bit schizophrenic. Are we Central American? Are we Caribbean? Are we both? Or is it a clear division within the country itself? How does something like this make an impact on the wider economic situation? Is it perhaps that because we cannot clearly identify ourselves that we are unable to decipher strategic options of where to move?
Well, you've raised a crucial point, because in the past, people have been uncomfortable with the notion of multiple identities. Today, we're not. We recognize wherever we are in the world that we can belong to different entities at the same time without being forced to choose between them. It's partly a function of air travel and all that sort of stuff, because people can now spend time. In the old days, you take a one-way boat to Australia and that was it. I mean, you change your identity and you never came back. Now people spend perhaps half the year in the Dominican Republic, half the year in New York. They have two identities. So there's no reason why Belize shouldn't profit from its membership of these three regions. I'm very struck at the family ties that exist between northern families in Belize and parts of the Yucatan Peninsula. Every time I go through the Yucatan, people say, oh yes, I have a sister-in-law in Orange Walk or something like that. And it's normal. Absolutely. Well. And it's very normal for neighbors to trade with each other. You think of, Uruguay and Brazil, small country, large country. Huge integration between them, trade, investment, people and capital and all the rest of it. Even Salvador and Guatemala here in Central America, very closely integrated. Colombia and Venezuela. Why shouldn't Belize be more closely integrated? It's a natural order of things, but it doesn't happen because there are various legal and institutional obstacles in the way.
I mean, just a small thing to illustrate this. I was trying to trace a botanist who collected for a US project in the 30s, and he was from Cayo. And actually, I haven't still been able to establish whether he's Guatemalan or Belizean, because he was one of these families, belonged to one of these families that was both. Actually, you have to recognize.
Now, it's interesting that we're talking about the schizophrenia that, you know, we have come to almost accept but can't seem to manipulate to our advantage. Is it a part of the, just because you have these constructs where we're talking about belonging to a particular block, that we have not been able to actually capitalize on being in a strategic place, being called the bridge, but is it a bridge to nowhere for us?
Well, I think the bridge metaphor is not the right one. I think it's membership of the region that matters, and there's no problem with belonging to more than one region, as long as legally you can do so. The trouble is that Belize, by joining CARICOM, and I'm not against CARICOM, don't get me wrong, but it's a scheme which represents quite a small part of the Caribbean, yet alone of the wider region. And it's a scheme which, rightly or wrongly in my view, chose to emphasize deepening among the members rather than widening of the membership. Belize, as a participant, has gone along with that, and the result is it's very restricted in what it can do with other regions to which it belongs. It's the same problem for Guyana, but it's interesting that Guyana has gone further than Belize and has signed partial scope agreements with both Venezuela and Brazil. St. Kitts has now signed one with Brazil. So you're beginning to see in the Caribbean a recognition that this emphasis on deepening hasn't worked to the advantage of the members. It's not that anyone is saying, let's get rid of CARICOM, it's just how can we loosen the rules so that we can participate in other regions, not just in the one in the Caribbean. Just one very quick point. I mean, Haiti is a member of CARICOM, but it's a very marginal member. If you exclude it, CARICOM represents 15% of the Caribbean population. It's 85% that's not in it.
Now, I have a quick question there. What part does culture play in all of this? Because the big challenge for Belize has been that for some reason we're holding on to our Afro roots, and we think that CARICOM affords us that. Otherwise, we'd be engulfed in Central America because of the population sizes. We see it happening with our demographic changes over the last 10, 15 years, over 20 years. And that's a fear that, is it a legitimate fear? Is it something that we should be concerned about, and should it impact our economic development?
Well, I actually think Belize is one of the more successful countries in managing this cultural stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all Creole. We have various cultures in our makeup. Look how well we've assimilated it. So I think what's true for us is probably true for most Belizeans, really. And when you look in history, for example, at Guyana, you know, look at the frightful cultural problems they've had. We've had nothing approaching that in Belize. It is true that certain groups may feel more kinship with the people they recognize and grew up with, but it hasn't led to huge violence or movements against that.
Yeah. We mustn't neglect to discuss, obviously, that when we talk about Central America, the number one issue that we face is the situation with Guatemala. And oftentimes it becomes almost a mental block for your average Belizean. Oh, we don't want to go to Central America, Guatemala is there, Guatemala wants us. You know, the different perceptions that people have vary. Is this perhaps the root of the problem as to why, even though based on proximity, they are closest for us to trade with, we have been unable to break down that barrier?
Well, it's obviously part of the problem, but it's interesting that one of the ways in which you deal with disputes of this nature is by encouraging economic integration and cooperation, functional cooperation and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I mentioned earlier, Guyana has a partial scope agreement with Venezuela. There's a territorial dispute there, but that hasn't stopped them trying to benefit mutually from integration into each other's economy. And the other interesting thing is that if you look at the trade statistics between Belize and Guatemala, you will see that Guatemalan imports into Belize have been rising very rapidly in the last 10 years, not just since the partial scope agreement was signed in 2010. Why is that? That's the really interesting thing. If you look at the sorts of products coming in, it's clearly reflecting the demographic trends that you were talking about. The Guatemalan families and Salvadorians who are living in Belize, who are small farmers and so on, who are buying now things from Guatemala and El Salvador because they know those markets. They know they can get the things that they want there more cheaply than from elsewhere. And so you're finding that the demographics is actually changing the trade patterns, and who knows, if that continues and if Belize can find similar things to export to Central America, it could even ease some of the tensions that have been such a problem in the past.
Now, when you're taking a historical overview, especially when it comes to economics, given the fact that there's so many parts of that puzzle that many Belizeans don't recognize or don't know how to recognize, how do you make that point where it's important to look back at the economics, to look forward as to where we should go, especially when you're talking about trading with people that we now have a cultural bent against?
Context.
Well, as I said to you, I think last year, you need to know your history in order to learn from it and avoid the mistakes of the past. And Belize has such an extraordinarily rich history. And I don't think yet there's a sufficient appreciation of it. Let's give an example. This year is the 250th anniversary of the Treaty of Paris, the first treaty between Britain and Spain that gave a legal identity to the settlement of Belize. I don't think anyone will celebrate that here in Belize. I'm not sure that many people are even aware of it. And you can understand, because it was a time of slavery and all the rest of it. But it is a fact that if that treaty hadn't been signed, Belize probably wouldn't exist today. Because when the settlers and their slaves were marched off by the Spanish to Merida in 1779, the only reason they were able to come back in the early 1780s is because of a second treaty which reaffirmed the rights of the previous treaty. If there hadn't been a first treaty 250 years ago, there would have been no second treaty. And I'm not at all sure Belize would exist today. So here is something in history which is probably worth at least reflecting on, considering, but sadly it looks as if there's going to be no mention of it at all.
Or even discussing it, because I think you're very right. It may be something that people are not fully aware of. And that really brings me to my next point. What does it mean for the individual and the wider society when, and I think, I mean, I can say I'm guilty of it, I know many others who are, that we are not fully acquainted with the history of our nation. And I mean from the different treaties, not just what we've learned in school, because we've come to accept that that's not all that there is, but really taking that wider or that deeper analysis to be able to form your own opinion and your own understanding of how your nation was built.
Well, now that's, are you asking me how one should go
How
about
does it impact?
Well, I think that for me, context is really important, because when you have the world context, you can see how Belize fits into it. If you're just studying Belize history, you might think Belize is unique in this. But when you put it in the context of other nations, you might think very differently. Look, I grew up in Belize in the 50s and 60s. At the time, I thought, this was during the time of empire and all that crap, you know, I thought Britain had always been the premier nation in the world. But I came to learn that, in fact, not only was this not the case, but she had to fight very hard to build up her empire, that her fights influenced us in Belize because through things like the Treaty of Paris and stuff like that. So these are small steps that curiosity leads us to give us a better informed view.
And I think, just to add to that, I couldn't agree more. The context is so important, because the more you study Belize, the more you realize that it is always being shaped by global forces, which are very, very wide. They can stretch as far as Asia, not just Africa and Europe and North America and South America.
Take the subject
and
of
it's
my
still
talk.
happening. It's still happening.
Yeah, take the subject of my talk this evening. You know, I'm going to be speaking about the Belize Botanic Station and bioprospecting. Now, the example of bioprospecting will take us from Brazil to Southeast Asia, orchestrated by the colonial government in London, you know, and explains the commodity we're talking about, rubber, will explain why the Belize Botanic Station was set up. Now here we have one little commodity that you know a lot about, you use it every day, but it has huge impact on millions of lives. So that changes the way you see things.
You should mention where you're speaking tonight.
We'll ask you that. We'll ask you that. Yeah.
We'll come to that. I have another question, because where we are in terms of the economy, we've had all these parallels being drawn recently with Argentina, and are there lessons to be learned, and can we definitely look at, in a lot of cases, people want to draw from the Caribbean because they talk that nation states are similar in size to us. But when we draw parallels with Argentina or any other place that is much larger, that we run into difficulties because the economies won't work the same. Are those parallels a good thing or a bad thing, and who should we be drawing parallels with?
Well, you can't, in practice, study all countries in equal depth. So it makes sense to focus initially on countries in your region. But as I said before, Belize is part of 3 regions, and it can learn from all of these 3 regions. It can learn a lot from what happens in Mexico, in the different countries of Central America, and of course in the Caribbean, as long as it's understood that the Caribbean is more than CARICOM. As I said before, even the membership of CARICOM is only half the countries of the Caribbean. There are countries there, like Martinique and Guadeloupe, from which Belize could actually learn a lot. How many Belizeans have been to Martinique and Guadeloupe? Very, very few, I would think. And yet, there are things there which would be of enormous interest, I think, and benefit to helping Belizeans tackle some of the problems that they have. So the regions that you live in is a very good place to start, and Belize lives in 3 regions.
Now, when you are trying to look at history through very different lens, you've had the opportunity to actually, you grew up here, but you've had the opportunity to look from a distance. How do you think that informs your opinion of Belize and gives you a greater insight into our history, since you're not smothered under the arm of the development?
Yes. Well, actually, you see, I grew up in a claustrophobic Creole society in Sandquig, and who had turned its back on Central America, specifically Guatemala, what you were saying earlier. So I knew very little about Guatemala. And as I read and learned, I developed a huge curiosity about Spain, because one thing you know growing up as a Creole girl is that Guatemala had a huge effect on your life. You were terrified of them for a start. But on the one hand, you were being told that they had bad government and lots of other negative things. And so I developed a great curiosity about Spain, you know, because Spain were the first colonizers and so on and so forth. So as soon as I left Belize, I developed a huge curiosity about Spain, because one thing you know growing up as a Creole girl is that Guatemala had a huge effect on your life. You were terrified of them for a start. But on the one hand, you were being told that they had bad government and lots of other negative things. And so I developed a great curiosity about Spain, you know, because Spain were the first colonizers and so on and so forth. So as soon as I left Belize, I needed to go to Spain to find out how could this country that was so backward have such an impact on my life centuries after it had left the region. And that was my journey, the beginning of my journey. The beginning of my journey that taught me that Spain had once been a huge force to be reckoned with, top nation, and that Britain was a little dot on the answerable to Spain as well, and how it grew its empire.
I think,
and how Belize fitted into that.
Yeah, and I think what William, I mean, I understand your journey and what you just explained, but I think his question more has to do with the fact is, if you think that you were able to come to that awareness because you were removed from the situation.
Oh, I see. No.
Or you think the curiosity would have come either way?
Curiosity. Yeah. But you also need access to materials, and this did not come overnight. I had to make many journeys to Spain.
My other question has to do with, very often we're very caught up in who's to blame in Belize, right? Oh. And we look at our colonial history, and whether it's divide and conquer and so many other things, we feel it's ironic that our eye-opener today spoke about us being masters of our own destiny. Yeah. Because I feel very often that Belize feels as if though they've been impacted so much globally by outside forces that it is hard for us to chart our own course. Is it impossible for us to do that when you have your IMFs and everything else, you know, at your door?
No, it's not. Belize does have degrees of freedom. Its history is not predetermined, and although the global forces that we spoke about earlier are very powerful, and Belize has to understand them, that understanding then gives it a certain amount of room for maneuver. And in this respect, being small can sometimes be beautiful, because it means that turning a country from one direction to another is that much easier. You need to have a smaller number of stakeholders involved, a smaller number of decisions to be taken. It's a lot easier than turning a juggernaut around. Mm-hmm. And I think Belize needs to recognize this and not perhaps be quite as fatalistic, if you like, about what the future holds. There's a lot of countries in a worse situation than Belize, and there's a lot of good things in Belize, even though right now there is a sense of pessimism in the country about what's happening and where the country is heading. And we just hope that we can perhaps throw out some ideas as to what these opportunities might be.
One of the great resources of Belize is Belizeans. You know, Belize, for a small country, has an enormous number of very intelligent, articulate, and knowledgeable people. What more can you... I mean, how good a start is that?
But how can we utilize our human capital to propel us in the directions that we want to go? And because that's a part of the fragmentation that people feel in terms of the countries and its development. A big part of it has been the political divide. You know, you're either or. There doesn't come a point where 5 years elections are over and then it's all focused towards...
No, that's a very good point, and it's obviously, if you like, the Achilles heel of any democratic system is that for a democracy to work, you have to have party competition. That can be very intense. There has to be disagreements, but at the same time, within successful democracies, you have to find certain areas of common interest. Just to give you a quick example of where things can go wrong, you have the situation in the United Kingdom now in relation to the European Union. This should be a bipartisan position of support. It shouldn't be something that you fight over you fight over other things, you know, educational policy or that sort of thing, but you should not be fighting over something so fundamental and strategic. Yeah. And I think in Belize, the political class, and indeed the people as a whole, have to recognize that there are certain things which are above party politics. They are long-term,
fundamental areas that they will come to agreement.
But how do you define what are the fundamental things when the historical aspects keep shifting? You know, so many things that people take, you know, even the founding of the nation, you know, that's one of the tenets that we can't seem to agree on.
I think you need institutions a little bit divorced from the political struggle to operate in Belize that can take long-term strategic views.
You mean independent institutions?
Yes.
Independent
Independent
educational institutions,
think
for
tanks,
example.
if you like, which can stand back,
Yes.
policy units, things that can stand back,
Yes.
generate a good debate among all the key participants and try and arrive at a consensus for those things which for the next 20, 30 years require, if you like, buy-in from all the political parties. And that doesn't mean that you can't have political struggles about lots of other things, because of course you will, especially here in Belize.
Yeah, right.
Well, we are running out of time, but before we're wrapping up this segment, we want to give you the opportunity to talk about your specific talks that you have going and where people can join in.
Well, I'll be speaking this evening at 6:30 at the University of the West Indies Open Campus, and I'll be talking about, the talk is called Plants and People, the Belize Botanic Station and Bioprospecting.
And I'm talking on Wednesday at the University of Belize in Belmopan at 2 o'clock on the theme of Belize, Central America and the Caribbean, past, present and future.
And before my final question is just for you, Barbara. You spoke about growing up in Dankriga, in Stan Creek. You have to tell people, you know, what was your name before you got married, because you know that is going to be the question. So.
Oh, but family resemblance is strong, and they'll know.
People will watch you and say, "You're right, you're right." Well, we want to thank you for joining us and giving us just a little bit of insight as to what people can expect at your individual talks, and we really hope that people are able to make the time to go out and be a part of it, right?
Well, thank you for having us on the show. Thank you very much.
Making it such a pleasant experience. And we're going to hope to see you there.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, it will be to talk about the business outlook for 2013 with representatives from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Don't go anywhere. Open your eyes. We'll be right back after these messages.
I just arrived at Chetomal.
Really? I didn't know that prepaid phones can get roaming too.
Yep, we sure can. While visiting Chetomal, you don't have to worry about losing touch with the people back home. Be like me. Activate smart prepaid roaming service while still in Belize. Oh, hey, just texting my daughter. Like I was saying before, I love prepaid roaming, and it's convenient too. I don't need any special credit. I just use my existing smart credit for all my calls. And they can easily check in on me as well. See, my daughter's calling. Hey, hon. For me, the best part is not losing touch with my other friends and family traveling with me in Chetomal. They also have smart prepaid roaming service. We can stay in contact and always know where to find each other. I can use it while traveling to other parts of Mexico as well, like Cancun, Merida, and Mexico City. On your next trip to Mexico, make smart prepaid roaming a part of your travel plans.
Staying connected is now easy and affordable. Smart's prepaid roaming. The low rate of 99 cents per minute has now been extended through the month of January.
Smart, bringing people together.
If it affects you, if it affects your community, it has a social impact on the country. Call 6M1-1010 with tips.
The risk of cancer increases if a family member has been affected. Early cancer has few or no symptoms. Early detection may reduce treatment costs. Get the message. Take regular exercise, eat more fruit and vegetables, quit smoking, and discuss your cancer risk with your doctor.
What do you want from your bank?
I want to know that my bank will teach me how to save.
I want to know that my bank can help to make my dream of owning a home a reality.
I want to know that my bank will help me grow my business and build Belize.
I want to know that my bank will keep my investment safe.
Whether you want to start a savings plan, build your own home, invest in your business, or plan for retirement, the Belize Bank is here for you. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome back. And of course, as was promised earlier in the show, our focus now is on the business outlook for 2013. And we'll have that conversation with representatives of the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Joining us this morning is Kim Aikman, the Chief Executive Officer, and Claudette Ters, the Treasurer on the Executive Council of the Chamber. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Now, the last time we were joined by the representatives of the Chamber, the discussion was about the trade license issue. And I know that it was before they were, you were going to enter into discussion about the concerns that you had. Kim, can we get just a quick update about that situation?
Okay. Good morning, TV viewers, first of all, and good morning, Marlene and William. As I said earlier, I have new respect for you all. We had started getting concerned calls from our members regarding the trade license, and I think we were on the news earlier in December regarding the steep increases that some members have faced. We've since had a meeting with the Minister of Local Government, and we've had correspondence from the mayor. And basically, the mayor is kind of sticking to the law, which says 25%. Our members had facilitated us with the increases that they have experienced. In some cases, we've had one member go from an annual trade license of $9,000 to $30,000. And, you know, we need to look at this issue. The mayor has responded to us and has told us that the valuation basically is accurate, and that we need to look at changing the law. And also he had made overtures that the businesses could pay in 3 months. Unfortunately, the law says that you needed to pay by the 31st of December, so most businesses have gone ahead and paid by the 31st of December. But the chamber has met, and what we have discussed is to probably look at, yes, amending the law, and two, we need to look at the trade license as a license with a flat fee instead of an assessment every year. This way, if we know what our license will be, we can project and do our budget and you know, have a predictable environment. So that is one of the recommendations that we will be putting forward for the review of the legislation.
I heard you say that the mayor essentially stuck to what he had first said.
It's the law, yeah.
But what was the response from the ministry?
I think the ministry will be meeting with the mayor. I'm not sure where that is at this point.
I think we're still waiting for a response from our the Minister of Local Government.
Okay.
And if I can use my business as an example, we had a 71% increase in trade license. And like what Kim said, we want trade license to be treated as a license and not as a tax. For example, if I can give a simple example, everybody pays for a driver's license. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of a successful company or if you are a fruit vendor taking your fruits back and forth. everybody pays a flat fee for your driver's license. Now, what we are suggesting in terms of businesses is that if we could use possibly your business tax as a guide and create certain thresholds for businesses so that you know that if your business falls in this threshold, this will be your license for the year. So that creates predictability and you can plan.
But wouldn't the argument be that it's a percentage anyway? So it would be based on what your 100% is no matter what?
Well, this is why we want to use the business tax, because we believe that that's a good guide for most businesses. Because if you are making a certain amount of money, then you will know that, you know what, I will fall in this, and this is my bracket, and this is my trade license. So that is one suggestion that we would like to make to local government and to the mayor, if they would consider doing that instead.
How is this impacting the viability of businesses at this time, given the fact that the environment is not necessarily one of the most conducive?
Well, William, there are many factors contributing to the viability of businesses. The trade license is just another cost, in addition to many other things that are affecting us right now. We have some businesses that are holding on by a shoestring, and the steep increase has really impacted them. Actually, we've had some letters from members who have told us that they have written to the City Council because the assessment that they got will really have to cause them to either lay off employees, some of them close down. So it does have an impact on businesses. And if you look, you live in Vista Del Mar, if you look in the suburbs like Ladyville, you've seen an explosion in new businesses. They don't have to pay a trade license. And what will happen is that businesses will find a way to survive and probably move out of the city.
Now, that has been part of the discussion that we've been having with quite a number of people. The moving of businesses from downtown especially to, beyond the city limits. Will that impact what happens in the city tremendously, to the point that it may become more a dormant area and you may see more development beyond Belize City and beyond all over?
I do believe so. I think we're seeing that already. Businesses moving out of that downtown area in general. And the trade license is just another cost to businesses. When you consider that businesses has already have to deal with the increase in minimum wage, we've had increase now in our trade license, we've had increase in fuel, we've had just a recent increase in electricity. These are all costs that goes into your production. So it forces you to then reconsider, how can I best minimize my expenses to survive or to make a profit? Businesses are not in business just to survive. Businesses want to make a profit. And the better you do, you can expand, employ more, provide a service perhaps to the business community that is needed, that you see, but you have to take all of these costs into effect.
And I think one of the problems with this conversation and what tends to happen when we talk to business representatives is that we don't discuss thoroughly the impact on the consumer or even your employees. You talk about minimum wage, increase in minimum wage, they're saying, oh, well, that's great for me. Or they say, well, you are the business that can afford to pay more trade license and help the city council to be able to give us the beautiful streets that we have. But because of the disconnect sometimes in understanding why the business sector is important and why it's important that it is thriving, because we don't discuss it. So how do you, even as the chamber, try to have that sensitization to the wider population, that when there is an issue, whether it's trade license or something else, that they need to be concerned about what's happening?
Well, we certainly do it through mediums like this. We also do a lot of email bursts. And you're right, whatever affects a business affects me as the consumer, because I represent the business community, but I am a consumer as well, and we all are. We all are employers. in something like the minimum wage. If the minimum wage increases, I'm sure you have a housekeeper, you have a babysitter, their wage increases. You have to pay that wage. You may not be getting an increase because you're not at the minimum wage. So it's a trickle-down effect. It affects everybody we are part of each other. We cannot do without the other. Yeah. Workers need to realize that we cannot do without workers, and employers need to realize that we cannot do without them.
Now, people might argue as well that a lot of it is just passed on to the consumer. So what's the big deal? What is the big deal?
Well, would you like to be paying more? We have a situation right now because of where we're geographically located. We're landlocked. We have Melchor on one side and Chetumal on the other. Their tax structure is totally different from ours in Belize, which makes their commodity lower. The price is lower. You and me as the consumer will go towards where we'll get lower prices. The chamber has been agitating since 2008, with the government to look at our tax structure, to try to encourage people to stay at home to buy. People will not stay here if right across the border, an hour and a half, 2 hours away, you can get cheaper goods. Yeah. So it's a huge picture that we need to look at overall. We need to look at we've paid tax upon tax upon tax, and we need to look at that and see how we can compete with the neighbors.
Yeah. Let's move into our conversation for today, the outlook for 2013. Obviously, in preparing what it is that you will be seeking to do for 2013, there has to be a good account as to what you've just experienced in the previous years. What do you think have been some of the setbacks or major challenges that you have had to face? We know trade license is one of them, and that came at the close of the year.
I think crime is also an issue. Crime is a big issue that we are facing, and I know that the government has been working, and we've had some changes in the police department, but maybe we have reached the point that we need some kind of international assistance. And it's not to say that we want to bring in someone. I know that that idea has been discussed before, to have someone come in with the proper expertise to help our police system or structure. Maybe just for an in and out, a short time, to set up certain strategies that they can use to help to combat, because we have to realize that we are now facing a new reality as far as crime is concerned. So this is one of the big issues that will impact businesses. I can give a personal example of a friend of mine. He's a foreigner who has visited Belize on several occasions, and he would like to do business in Belize. He came here around the end of last year, and there were so many killings and shootings of a personal friend of his that he told me, he said, I really have to stop and think, if I want to really come and set up business in Belize, can I live with this situation? So it has a far-reaching effect, something as simple as that crime situation on investors.
And that goes without saying, the early closing hours that we have seen. Even the shutdown of business last Tuesday.
Precisely.
Even though it was not mandated, it was an individual decision by business owners. However, they felt it necessary, which meant no income for that day.
And that coupled with increases in security.
Well, that's what I was about to say. If you look at anybody's balance sheet, any business, you will see that security is right up there on that. The Chamber engages with the government. We sit on a Citizen Security Committee that is chaired by the Prime Minister. And we have advocated, I think we've been advocating for many years, for them to implement the Crooks report. We've had so many studies done on crime in Belize, and they all end up in a report that's put somewhere on somebody's shelf. If you look at the Crooks report, it gives a comprehensive roadmap as to where we can go to try to address this system, this real terrible problem. I think some aspects of the Crooks report have been implemented piecemeal, but we believe that if you look at the entire picture and try to start implementing based on the roadmap. One of the recommendations from Crooks was a foreign commissioner. I guess that is no longer, but we were told, I think last year, that we would be getting an advisor from India. I don't know what has happened with that. I don't see an advisor here, and obviously we need help because, as Claudette said, this is a new level of crime that we're experiencing.
Now, the conversation of recent has been not just about looking at the crime situation and saying, well, we're really out of control, but what can we do to help? What is the business community willing to do to assist in the crime situation that affects us all?
Well, we've been doing for years and years. We've made contributions to the department. We've given bulletproof vests, financial contributions. However, and we've had individual businesses doing programs like the night basketball and sponsoring different things to try to address the youth. We have made several recommendations as to how we can move forward. So we have given recommendations to the powers that be. I know it's a all-encompassing, overwhelming situation, and you don't know where to begin, but we have to start somewhere, and one of the recommendations and one of the ways that we believe we could help was to assist in the general administration of the police department. They need to get on a performance appraisal basis so that you're rewarded for your performance instead of just moving through the ranks. So we've tried to inject our expertise where we can.
Now, you'd say that obviously with the issues that we've been talking about, whether it's the licenses or crime, that there's been a whittling down of the environment for businesses. What would you say is perhaps the third greatest challenge that businesses have? If
Besides
those two aren't...
Besides the taxes and the crime?
I would say predictability. In business, we always talk about we want accountability, we want transparency, but predictability is so important for businesses so that they can forecast. Businesses want to plan ahead. You want to know that there are certain factors that can be considered, and there are certain things that you know that will impact your business. But the more predictable you can make those variables, the better you can plan for the future.
Let's help these non-business students understand this better. What are the factors that make it unpredictable? The changing in the fees, I'm assuming, would be one.
Yes, fees are definitely one. I believe also the crime situation is, and that's, I mean,
they're interconnected.
Right, they're interconnected to an extent. What else?
I think the absence of information.
Yes.
Creates
That's
speculation. Speculation creates panic.
Yeah.
You brought up, I guess the most recent one was the trade license, and so I use that as an example. When we did our budget, you budget for more or less what you paid in trade license for 2013. You're given a bill, an invoice with a 300% increase. It's expensive. So you need to scramble, you need to find how you will get this money to pay this trade license. You either go to your financial institution to borrow it at a 11, 12% interest, or you decide you have to take it from somewhere where it may have been more productive with an employee. I cannot afford you anymore, William. I'll have to lay you off for this year because I need to use your salary to pay my license. My security costs have increased, so I have to look at my employees again or another productive area to see how I can secure what I have.
Now, how about financing? Because we've had the talk of liquidity in the banking sector, but is it monies that are accessible by the business community? And because of the lack of predictability, can you therefore even consider accessing financing to meet some of the short-term challenges that you may have that are extending beyond the short term?
I do believe so. Accessing financing is not necessarily limited to some businesses. I think some people will opt to go with a DFC kind of financing, while others will go to the banks or the credit union. I think accessing financing is dependent on your financial situation. When you go to the banks or any institution for financing, they require certain information that you have to present in order to get access to that financing. And so it's just a matter of getting your records in order, getting your books together, and taking that to your institution to see what kind of financing is available, what is there that you can access. So I don't think it's limited to one type of business or the other.
Okay.
There are different areas to access finance.
I mean, we have seen over the past year where there have been a number of government and NGO initiatives looking at the establishment of small businesses, getting the entrepreneurs up and going, because there seems to be an understanding now that Belizean businesses or businesses here in our country are what we need to survive. Is this a move in the right direction for 2013? Or does there need to be an equal focus on those businesses that are already established?
Well, it has to be balanced. Of course, we know that the way to economic vitality is probably through exporting. And we need to create the environment where we will have new businesses forming, small businesses, because small businesses are also large employers. If you cluster them together, they employ quite a number of people. So we have to look at making the environment viable for small businesses to survive. And we also have to look at sustaining what we have right now. So the policies that have to be put in place have to support both.
Let me ask something, because I think this is one of the things that stands out for me. Membership within the chamber, how has that evolved as we see businesses changing dramatically in Belize? For example, I'll just look at grocery stores, for example, and the proliferation of Asian-owned businesses. Is that something that we see reflected in what happens with the chamber and membership?
In terms of having a large Asian population in membership?
Right,
actually, no. We haven't seen that in the membership of the chamber. I think they probably cluster themselves together and use their collective powers to do their own bargaining. Our membership at the chamber has remained, I guess, demographically the same over the years. We've had our local businessmen, we've had people in the tourism industry also being members of the chamber.
How does that impact the policies or what you agitate for, and the environment that you now have to function in?
Well, we try to interact with the organizations that represent the different groups of people. So we've made overtures to the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, and we try to interact with them, because the issues that face us face them as well.
Right. Well, I do want us to move into our business outlook for 2013, even though we've touched on some of the topics, I'm sure. What do you think is going to be the main thrust of your advocacy, especially as the private sector representatives?
Well, I would say that we would want to be able to not only survive, but to be able to be profitable. Businesses have experienced a lot of difficult years since the recession. So I think businesses are finally climbing out of that recession, and they want to know that this year they can become profitable, they can plan, they can have new ventures, they can diversify. So we want to remain positively optimistic for 2013.
Yeah. And what will it take for you to be able to have that?
Well, I think that we're encouraged because we've been agitating for the tax reform, which we feel is a big part of our uncompetitiveness with the surrounding countries. And the study, we believe, should begin this month. I think there are people who should begin that study with the government. So we're encouraged by that.
As you talk about that, what about the conversation with the tax makers, so to speak?
And with the establishment of the business sector representative as well, has that been of good assistance?
That has been definitely of good assistance. And also we have the Economic Development Council, which has 5 private sector and 5 public sector. So the dialogue is there. I think the first year that we're feeling out ourselves, this year we need to specifically point at areas that we need to have fixed in the long term, in the short term, medium term. And I think that one of the biggest issues is the tax, and we will, as I said, we're encouraged because the study should begin this month.
Yeah. What are the other critical areas that you're hoping to address this year?
Crime.
Yeah.
I think crime really affects, because if you feel insecure, it leads back to, you asked about the financing. If I don't have the confidence, I will not go and dig myself in a hole and get whatever finance. So I think crime needs to be addressed. People need to feel secure.
Let me ask you, obviously the cost of crime and security fees and whatnot that the business incurs, but have we seen a shift in what people are spending? Are we spending less because there's more crime? Or is it just that you're paying more because of the crime?
You're paying more.
So the spending is essentially the same?
Relatively flat.
Okay.
Well, any final words in terms of encouragement, especially to your members?
Well, the Chamber, as you know, is the membership organization, and we will advocate for you. We're your voice, and we need for you, our members, to be engaged and to participate with us so that we can have a full knowledge before we go to advocate.
And if I can add to that too, I would also like to implore Belizeans to support Belizean, to support the local businesses. You know, we are here and we are providing a service, we're providing goods, and so we need we need our people, or Belizean people, to support our businesses.
Well, thank you both for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right.
We're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, it'll be for our Raptors for today. Don't go anywhere. Open your eyes. We'll be right back.
Smart is starting the year off right. On Wednesday, January 16th, get triple up and double up on credit uploads. That's right. Triple up with uploads from $50 and up. And get double up with uploads from $1 to $49. Recharge using prepaid cards, Gimme Dollar Agents, Go Mobile, the Smart Lounge, or Easy Talk. So on Wednesday, January 16th, triple up and double up, and start the year off with Smart.
Smart, bringing people together.
The risk of cancer increases if a family member has been affected. Early cancer has few or no symptoms. Early detection may reduce treatment costs. Get the message. Take regular exercise, eat more fruit and vegetables, quit smoking, and discuss your cancer risk with your doctor.
While we're always on the go, whether there's a murder, shooting, or traffic mishap, the news is not always about crime. There's success stories, life-changing experiences, environmental features, and even entertainment news. So if you or anyone you know would like to share a newsworthy story with us, call me, Dwayne Moody, at 223-7781 or contact me by email at dwayne20moody@yahoo.com.
What do you want from your bank?
I want to know that my bank will teach me how to save.
I want to know that my bank can help to make my dream of owning a home a reality.
I want to know that my bank will help me grow my business and build Belize.
I want to know that my bank will keep my investment safe.
Whether you want to start a savings plan, build your own home, invest in your business or plan for retirement, the Belize Bank is here for you. The Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Every day, I report the disturbing details of the crimes that plague our streets.
It's hard not to be touched by the reality that affects all of us. But shaking our heads is not enough.
Support an organization that's fighting crime through community outreach, public awareness, education, and institutional strengthening.
Contact Crime Stoppers Belize today at crimestoppersbelize.org. We all have to work together to create a safer Belize. Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers Belize today.
crimestoppersbelize.org.
And welcome back.
And, you know, today's conversation was very good because we went from the history to the current and to moving forward in both conversations, and how important it is for us to understand what are the challenges that we have faced, how we've overcome, and what are the challenges that we face now and how we can hope to overcome with strategic moves towards bettering our economy.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, if you want to contact us, you can contact us at OYE@channel5belize.com, Marlene_OYE@channel5belize.com,
and William_OYE@channel5belize.com. Have a great day, everybody, and be sure to join us tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes to start your morning right. Until then, have a great day.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and SMART, bringing people together